David Ames, and we'd like to honor the sign in the memorial to him also. I'd like to call up Mr. David Rowan to speak. Take a minute to share with you Mr. David Ames' role in relation to the Historical Society. 38 years ago was the fall of 1969. The officers of the Historical Society were meeting at our kitchen in Center Street when the doorbell rang. And it was a representative of the Ames family who told us that we had been given this extraordinary building by Mr. David Ames, his brothers John Jr. and Senator Oliver Ames, and his relative William Ames Parker, William Amory Parker. We were absolutely shocked. We had no idea this was coming. This was a total surprise. Dave and I had one flashlight. Two other people had flashlights, and so 8 of us explored this building, which had no electricity. The windows were boarded, and we were just absolutely thrilled by what we had been given, and somewhat frightened by the challenge in front of us of restoring a Richardson building. It was a very special, special treat. And so for the last 38 years, the officers, boards, and other members of the society and other people have worked very, very hard to put the railroad station in the condition that it is and to really make it a museum. And I hope at the end that you'll go in, have refreshments, and enjoy the display. The next thing that Mr. David Ames did was to decide to update the history of the Ames family, which had basically ended by Winthrop Ames. He had talked about Oates and Congressman Oates and Oliver about what happened to the Ames family after the 1870s. And so he developed a paper which was presented to the Historical Society in 1970. And he gave us permission to have it printed in the History of Easton Volume 2. And it's a wonderful chronology of the Ameses from 1870 to 1970. And the last thing I just want to mention is that on a November Sunday in 1991, Mr. and Mrs. Ames came to the railroad station. David and I were here and several other people. And Mrs. Ames was making arrangements to have a sign presented to the Historical Society. She felt we really needed something unique. And she was meeting with the designer and creator, Roger McNamara. And so while Mrs. Ames and Roger were here, Mr. Ames, David, I, and others were talking to Mr. Ames, and he was talking about just how much he was pleased with what we had done with the railroad station since we'd been given the gift. And he also mentioned that obviously he was so pleased that Mrs. Ames was having a sign made that would be unique to our society. As I'm sure you realize that just a few days later, Mr. Ames died. And so Mrs. Ames decided to obviously dedicate it in her husband's memory. So we associated with the Historical Society are really honored by what David Ames and Mrs. Ames have done for us. And without any extra explanation, it's my pleasure to present Mrs. David Ames, the giver of the sign. Stay right there.
Well, I know that the Historical Society meant a lot to David. He used to come down here, particularly in his latter years, almost every, without fail, every Sunday that the building was open a little bigger. And so I think today, you know, this beginning of some of the things that people will be going by, hopefully they'll stop in and the whole thing. Thank you, Bill. Well, I'd like to introduce my son, Fred Ames, and who is also the president of the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. He's been serving the...
Thank you. I have, comparatively, I hate to say now, as much history as my mother, but mine certainly is accruing. I know Dad was really dedicated to Easton. Town meant a lot to him. He devoted a lot of his time. I would love to have heard some of those conversations with him and Paul Berry about such a vast resource between the two of them. And the Historical Society has done so much work, and I think it's really been critical to this town and our history and saving it and making it, what it is today, which is really quite attractive. Anyway, I know with the Oak St. Paul, the restoration, and Richardson restoration, I think, Hazel, you mentioned that. And there's somewhere there's Dad's voice in the back if I'm about to do something really stupid. Most of the time, sometimes it gets away, but his voice is still there. He certainly had a very definite philosophy. And he was very strong of opinion, and I know he sometimes sort of discouraged it, but it was too late. He had influenced us on too deep a level. So I'm very grateful. And my son Sam is here, is he? And there's Sam, so we have another generation coming. Anyway, there he is. So now I've sufficiently embarrassed him, which I find at age 15 I can embarrass him about any time. But again, we are very appreciative of this. I know my father would be smiling down on us now. And I love the way the roses are done, too. They're nicely, I assume those are roses carved in on either side. Very nicely done. And thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
Right straight ahead. So please have refreshments, enjoy yourself, and we thank everybody. And Bill's going to say a few words finally.
My few words are, I know upstairs is very interesting with the computers, scanning, and images. Any chance we can see upstairs?
You're welcome to. We have things there for the yard sale, so we have chairs. So I would be very glad to take anybody upstairs, or Frank would, and we'll show you how it's set up.
What's going on. Yeah, that's all. That's a great day.
Thank you all for coming. Deb, do you have anything else? Do you want to just mention train day?
Oh, yes. Hi, everybody. I just want to thank everybody for coming. This is such an exciting day for us to have the honor to have Mrs. Ames here and to dedicate our new sign. It's such a wonderful sign. Mr. Roger McNabb did a wonderful sign coordinating colors and things like that for us, so I wanted to thank him. And also, on June 10th, which is our annual, or I should say our June open house, which is always the second Sunday of the month, from 1 to 5, we're having a wonderful new event this year. We're having Train Day. And what we're doing is Mr. Menino is going to be a conductor, and he's going to talk about the train, how it went through, and how there's so many tracks and things like that. And we're going to have a gentleman that's going to be a hobo, and he's going to tell us hobo stories. And we're having a hobo dress-up contest at 3 o'clock. And any children that are like 12 and under can come, and we're going to do a judging contest. And the Easton Village Toy Shop was really generous and donated a $25 gift certificate for the best dressed hobo. And we're going to actually have an opportunity to display Mr. Ellery Willis's train set. Many years ago, he created this unbelievable train set that unfortunately with space constraints, we haven't had an opportunity to display. But it is actually a wonderful train set, definitely worth coming to see. And what he did was he painstakingly measured all of